Hello, Internet. Daniel with Driving and Dragons. Today I'm going to come back to you a little bit late to the party, but following up on all this OGL stuff, let's take a list of 5 games you can play that are not Dungeons and Dragons, with a couple asterisks. See you on the other side. Alright, so first let's take a quick minute to talk about why I think it's important that we still explore other games. I've always felt it's important that you explore other games, not just because it expands your horizons and because it's a lot of fun, because a lot of these games are better than Dungeons and Dragons at certain things, but it's important to the tabletop role-playing game hobby and community as a whole, and it's really a good thing for your table and your group in terms of the longevity of your gaming group. There's a million reasons out there for why players wash out of groups and stop playing. But one that's kind of common is people kind of get sick of D&D. Not because they're sick of Dungeons and Dragons, but because they're sick of kind of the sameness of it. It's the same game, we have different coat of paint on it, but it's the same game every time. We're playing same class structure, same feel, the same ambiance, and even if you have a good DM who's working through everything and writing some really good homebrew material and whatnot, and making some adjustments to try and increase and change the atmosphere and feel at the table, it's still going to have some sameness to it. And it's kind of a slog. There's so much stuff out there, and there's so many supplementary books that get piled on for Dungeons and Dragons that it starts getting real easy for players to feel almost priced out of the market, because every time they turn around, they got that one guy at the table who's buying that new book every time it comes out, and they kind of feel like, all right, I got to go buy another book, Next thing you know, they got shelves full of D&D books, and they get washed out. So having additional games in the rotation can also help the health there, but on the community side of things, it's really important. You just take a look at what happened with this OGL situation, and look what happened with 4th edition, where we didn't learn our lesson. The only thing we did when 4th edition came out is a bunch of people switched to Pathfinder, and let's be honest, they didn't switch to Pathfinder for any reason other than it was basically a 3.5 edition progression. It was basically backwards compatible with 3.5, and they already had all that investment. And 4th edition was too different. If Wizards of the Coast had not made 4th edition so radically different than 3rd edition, they probably would have never had a Pathfinder to worry about, if it was even remotely close to what 3.5 was. So, every time D&D takes a hit right now, the whole market, the whole tabletop role-playing game space, and the whole hobby takes a big hit as an industry. And it's because we're a smaller market. We're a smaller market that is dominated by one ubiquitous game. And when D&D gets hurt, the whole community gets hurt. And the only way you fix that is through expanding what you play and making sure that they don't have to get as big as Dungeons and Dragons. And in a lot of ways, I don't think that's even really possible right now. But what you can do, and what is very possible, is add a few of these games to your rotation. Play a Dungeons & Dragons campaign, play another campaign for a different game. Then go back to D&D and then play another game. By having all this stuff kind of in a rotation, so to speak, you get more gaming, you get more versatility, you get more variety, you get more excitement at your table, and it makes these other games just big enough to where they're always an option that is readily available, and you don't end up in situations where you can't find a source book because the publisher can't handle the additional volume. They can't ramp up fast enough to put out core books for all the new players coming in because they're pissed at Dungeons and they're pissed at Wizards of the Coast again. So you end up falling right back into Dungeons and Dragons, and the whole hobby hurts. You've got to have more outlets. I mean, you want to see several of these games get healthy enough to where they're in that other games or other role-playing game shelf at Barnes & Noble instead of it being Dungeons & Dragons, a tiny little shelf down here with some Pathfinder stuff on it. You want to have your Dungeons and Dragons section, and then a section for other games over here that's got Pathfinder, Call of Cthulhu, Traveler, and everything else on it. And you want these games to get big enough to where they see more distribution and more mainstream and more traditional publishing distribution, just so those options are always there, and it kind of prevents the hit that the entire hobby takes from things like the OGL debacle in the future. So, that being said, we're going to take a step forward, and we're going to go to the first game on this list. It's really going to be 4 games and then 1 category of games. So there's kind of an asterisk beside that. But let's take a look at number 1 on this list, which is going to be Call of Cthulhu. So Call of Cthulhu. Call of Cthulhu is a fantastic game for you to add to your table. It is wholly different than Dungeons & Dragons. It is a skill-based game. You don't level up. It is a mystery and problem-solving and social game first, and an action game, actually an action game probably third. It's probably not even an action game second, because it is a horror game, and it is really designed for, in all honesty, your players ought to be avoiding combat as much as possible, because typically whatever they're going into combat with is the kind of thing that's just going to wipe the floor with them. There's no, I'm going to have 5 or 6 battles in your typical Call of Cthulhu game. Usually it's you trying to figure out what it is you're going to be fighting the entire time, eventually coming up with a solution, figuring out what the mystery is, finding out what's going on, and either trying to stop the ritual or finding out whatever the secret sauce is to beating the big featured evil thing that you're finding out, the Cthulhu monster that's there, finding out the way to beat it without, trying to go guns blazing, stabbing it with a knife type thing. Because for the most part, you're in a situation where your guns and your knives are really more of a nuisance to the creatures you're fighting than much of anything else. So Call of Cthulhu gives you a totally different vibe. It's also, being that it's an eldritch horror game, and it fosters that environment in the very rule system and in the very way the game is set up. Another great thing is this is an easy plug and play. This can be the Halloween scenario every year. This can be the break. You can have your Dungeons & Dragons campaign and be like, hey, we're going to take a break for Halloween. We're going to run this one-shot Call of Cthulhu adventure on Halloween. Everybody have your stuff together. They're all excited about it and stuff while they're still playing D&D, and it's that one weekend where everybody's got their dry ice out and their costumes and whatnot, and hey, we're going to do a Call of Cthulhu game for Halloween and for its atmosphere of horror and dread. Great way to use that game. Lots of fun. It's a very easy game to do one-shots with. It lends itself very well to a mystery of the night kind of thing. And that is it's just one of those situations where this game is so different that it can just be a palate cleanser between campaigns, and it can be used for special occasions. It can be used for that day when it's like 5 of us are, there's 7 of us in the group, but 4 or 5 of us can get together today, kind of a lazy Saturday. What do you want to do? Let's throw the game together and do a little bit of a mystery scenario, grab a pre-written adventure or something. Works out really well. So Call of Cthulhu is the first game on my list, with a asterisk here too, or not necessarily an asterisk, but an honorable mention. There is the Pulp Cthulhu rule set that can also be added too, which is going to give you more of a pulp comic book early 1900s pulp feel to it. It's going to be a little bit more action-oriented if you want to fight the Cthulhu monsters a bit more, if you want to use the magic more like a spell book and less like this is a secret ritual that we have to get to. If you want to use it more in an Indiana Jones or Tomb Raider kind of style game, Pulp Cthulhu is a great way to adjust. It's a great adjustment to the rules and works fantastic for you. So that's the first one's Call of Cthulhu. Now we're going to take a look at the second one, the game that my group's currently playing, and one of my personal favorites. We're going to go to Cyberpunk Red. So Cyberpunk Red. Cyberpunk Red is what I'm currently playing at my table, and I think it is probably one of the best games you can add to your rotation for a lot of reasons. One is that Cyberpunk Red is an extremely accessible game. It is a very, very accessible game. Easy to learn, easy to pick up. Grab that core rule book and a player, and I can have a couple of people within an hour having a grasp of how to play the game. Within another hour, they've got their characters created, because it's got a 3-tiered character creation system where you can either just grab a template, or you can have kind of a pseudo-template system that's very quick and easy, or you can do a full, complete breakdown and, roll every single aspect of your character. You can roll your backstory, which is just amazing. It's really easy to get up and going and make a good, unique character. And within 2 hours, we're playing the game, and you can do a 4-hour one-shot pretty easy. Standard 6-hour session. You've basically taught somebody how to play the game, you've helped them roll a character, and you've run through a full adventure. Because it's so simple and streamlined. Every check except damage is the exact same formula. Everything is done with D10s and D6s. It is just an easy system to pick up, and it is hyper streamlined from the older versions of the game. And I just can't speak enough on the backstory system that's in it. You can literally, there's tables for every character. You roll for past serious romantic relationships. You can roll for how their childhood was. You can roll for what area of the world they came from. You can roll for were they raised rich, were they raised poor, were they raised, outcast. You can roll for did they have a criminal history. You can roll for, in their individual roles, which is sort of like a class, you can roll their career history all the way up to when you start playing. And it's just super streamlined. You don't have to roll it. You can pick off the list. You can make up whatever you want to for your character. But at the same time, if you want to grab and go and make somebody quick that's kind of unique, or you want to do some role-playing exercises where you play something a little different, why not let the dice determine it? It is the gritty game of the dark future. It is extremely lethal, and in a big departure from Dungeons & Dragons, Cyberpunk is as much about how your character dies as it is about how your character lives. Because everybody has the nihilistic mentality of life sucks, life is gonna suck, life is always gonna suck, and you're never gonna change the world. You're not big enough to change the world, but you might be big enough to make an impact on it. And a cyberpunk character is spending their entire life making sure that whatever is written on their tombstone is something that they're remembered for. And it's just a great feeling to keep your characters on the edge the entire time. Not just from the lethality of the game, but from the lethality of the world. And knowing that they're going to have to, bite, scratch, and claw their way through the game, and just live their life by that old motto that, if your life is a car, you don't want to park it in the garage pristine with a few miles on the odometer and look back and say, man, it's all in factory condition when you die. You want to slide the thing into the grave with the wheels falling off, a rod knocking, and smoke blowing everywhere, saying, hell, what a ride. And that is the philosophy that entire game is driven by, and it is a lot of fun. It is probably the ultimate one-shot game. Being able to throw together a one-shot adventure on the back cuff, because we decided to play today, is easy with Cyberpunk. Because you can play it with 10 people, you can play it with 2 people, you can play it with 1 person. Very easy. It's extremely simple for a game master to be able to ad-lib and take care of stuff kind of off the cuff and do the seat of the pants game mastering thing. So it's just a fantastic game. The honorable mention that comes here is the older version, Cyberpunk 2020. Yeah, Cyberpunk 2020 is an amazing game. It's just a lot crunchier and a lot more involved than Cyberpunk Red. I would almost say you should play Cyberpunk Red for a while, and the people who are really, really deep into it maybe pull out 2020 and say, hey, let's adapt some of these rules to Cyberpunk Red. Maybe we add in some of the stuff like the hit locations. Maybe we add in some of the stuff like the obscene number of critical failures and how they work. Just super adaptable game, and you can always bring that old version is compatible enough that you can use it to enhance and almost make like an advanced Cyberpunk version if that's what your players want to do, and then you can always use Red for those spur of the moment one shots. Maybe there's a movie coming out, like there's a new Blade Runner or something that's going to hit. Neuromancer movie is going to hit the screens. You're all excited about it. You want to play something that's kind of sci-fi but not too sci-fi. You pick up that Cyberpunk Red book, you rock and roll, and it is fantastic. Great game to add to your rotation. You need one book to play it. It's got a PDF version of the rule book that is one of the best PDF versions of a rule book ever. Hyperlinks everywhere. Very easy to flow through if you're making a character. It's not the best reference book. It's kind of a pain in the butt if you're doing it for like the grab the book and reference it type deal, which in my opinion is actually not a bad thing because it encourages the game master to make those spur of the moment decisions to keep the game moving. But when it comes to rolling a character, it really is kind of fantastic for rolling a character. I mean, it is just the next page is the page you need every single time, and you got those hyperlinks where it says, hey, if you're going to be this, click to this next section. If you're going to use this method, click this link and I'll take you right to the page you need to be on. Flowcharts in there and everything for character creation is so easy to just pick this game up and run with it. Great game to add to your table. And like I said, it's based cyberpunk. It's based in the near future in kind of a dystopian setting that you can jump into, but you can use it for anything you want. So next up on the list, it's going to be time to talk about a little bit of Traveler. Time to go seek out what's at the far reaches of the stars. So Traveler. What do we get with Traveler? Traveler kind of takes the opposite of Call of Cthulhu and Cyberpunk Red when it comes to the quick playability. It's almost a campaign rolling a character in Traveler. Now, there's faster ways to do it. And it does lend itself to one-shots once you have your characters all kind of built up and everything. But Traveler is really a game that is designed for campaigns. It is the ultimate deep space exploration, super fantasy, super high space sci-fi game. Famously, they'll tell you, you can die in character creation in Traveler. And it's true, because there's actually kind of a gambling aspect to your character creation. And I like it. I like that to me, it's kind of a great way to teach power gamers and min-maxers and optimizers a lesson. Because in Traveler, as you're going through your character's early history before the game starts, you're determining how old they are, what they've done in their career, you're making decisions, and you're rolling dice. Well, every decision you make may grant you something, some more skills, some more abilities. Maybe you get some, more stuff you start with, some better starting wealth or something of that nature. But there's also an opportunity that the dice are rolled and it turns out that part of your life wasn't so great. And maybe you got hurt. Maybe you picked up a disability. Maybe you died and it's time to start over. There's ways to do Traveler where you can literally die in character creation. But it's got a great backstory system. It's really good for building unique role-playing situations. And it's a great game it really is just a fantastic game for playing what it is, which is sci-fi. You can go all over the place, do all kinds of things. It's, build your own ships. It's got a lot of not during the adventure playtime type stuff that you can do with your players. What happens between adventures is almost as important as what happens during them. And there's just a lot you can do with Traveler. It's a great game. It's been around forever. Mongoose has done a fantastic job with it. And it's wholly different than Dungeons & Dragons. So it's another great thing for you to add to your table. I don't have a lot more to say on Traveler. It is a campaign game. I don't think anybody is just grabbing out the Traveler books to play on a rainy Sunday. But you can do the flip-flop on that, and you can run your Traveler campaign, but when Halloween comes up, you can either have them explore a spooky planet, you can change the things as they go to different worlds and different planets and different star bases, or you can say, hey, we're going to play Ravenloft for Halloween. We're going to play some kind of special D&D game for Christmas. We're going to play some kind of specialty D&D game for Easter or whatever. We're going to jump in and do that as a break from our Traveler campaign. And Traveler lends itself. Traveler is great to be the main campaign where you have your breaks in between. Because you can have your main campaign, and Traveler is very much a campaign game. But you want to do a special game, I'm going to pull Cyberpunk out for this one. Great for one-shots. I'm going to pull Call of Cthulhu out at Halloween time, because it's great for that, and it's great for one-shots, so we're going to do that. We all have played D&D for many, many years, so we're going to grab our 5th edition or our third edition books or our AD&D books, and we're going to do our one-shot with D&D, all spaced out, and you don't really have to worry about the problem with a break one-shot that you have in a lot of role-playing games, where you're having to remember, okay, where was I in the story? What was I doing with this? Okay, what was that nation doing? Who was this NPC? Because Traveler, while it's built for campaigns and it's built for long-term play, because it's a space exploration type game, it can very easily lend itself to that planet of the week situation, like the older, like Star Trek: The Next Generation or Star Trek, anything except DS9, where it's a long-going story that you don't want to be just trying to roll a character and jump in. You don't want to be just playing off of a template, but it's real easy to say we left that planet. That planet is light years away. We've been in cryosleep this whole time while we played our D&D one-shot or our couple of D&D game sessions, or while we played our game for Call of Cthulhu for Halloween. Now we're back. What pulled us out of hypersleep? What put us at, what planet are we at now? So Traveler is the number 3 suggestion. And next we're going to talk about GURPS. So the 4th game system I'm going to talk about is GURPS. Now GURPS is a little bit different. It is if I remember correctly, it is the generic universal role-playing game system. Or role-playing system. So GURPS covers a lot of different stuff. It's been adapted 100,000 times. It's kind of like the predecessor to your Creative Commons type situation. And really the big one that sticks out to me is Vampire the Masquerade. I've just always found GURPS is really good for those kind of oddball things, like if you want to do urban fantasy. Shadowrun, of course, is a good choice for that too, but GURPS is very adaptable, very adjustable. It is designed to be more of a template. If you're a super creative game master who likes to kind of move things around, it's very easy to play. It's by its nature, it's also a very minimalist system. So it's not particularly difficult to pick up. It's very kind of off the cuff, and of course, it's all over the place. It's kind of easy to find if you just go out and look for it. And one of the best things about GURPS is, I think one of the big situations you run into with trying to add other games to your table is, what if the players don't like whatever the new nominal thing is? So maybe Cyberpunk sounds cool, but you start playing Cyberpunk and you find out, they don't really like this setting. They don't really like the way this works. They don't really like the way this game flows. You start playing Traveler. Oh crap! They sci-fi and space adventure sounded fun, but it just doesn't work out. So it's not gelling with the group. And now you're like having to do extra work to try and adjust it to something else, and everybody knows it's adjusted. And that you're kind of changing the system to meet to match a different era or something, and it just doesn't quite work. It doesn't really stick, and it becomes something where we're just going to go back to D&D. GURPS, because it is literally designed for that, is very easy for once they kind of learn the system. Very, very easy to just say, okay, we'll put down Vampire the Masquerade, we'll run werewolves, or we'll run some kind of Arabian Nights, or something of that nature, a Sinbad, Seven Seas type deal. There's a lot of stuff out there for it, and it's just a wealth of different settings and information that's available for you when it comes to that generic role-playing system, and it's designed for you to be more creative. Now, it's got a drawback in the fact that it can be a lot more work for the game master, but if the game master is already doing the bulk of the work anyway, and if it makes it easier to expand your table's horizons, keep that same group together, it's going to save you work on the back end anyway. So, GURPS is definitely worth looking into. It's the first of the two asterisk categories on this 5 games list, because it's really a lot more than just one game. It's more than just a game system. It is a template to build a system. And now, we're going to move on to the last one, which is a big, broad category. Like I said, asterisk, it's not one game. And this is the indie game scene. The indie game scene, I think, is extremely important, and that's what we're going to talk about next. So, the indie game scene. This is a crapshoot. I have no idea if it's going to be good or bad, if it's going to work, or if it's going to be full of holes, but it can be a lot of fun. And the best thing about the indie games, and there's 2 big advantages to it. One is the social advantage. You never know if you're going to pick up the next Dungeons and Dragons, or the next Pathfinder, or the next whatever. You don't know if you're going to find that gem and help expand it. And a couple of extra players goes a long way to these super indie games that are being run off of a Kickstarter, that are being run off of one guy in his basement. They mean a lot. It may be just enough. If that guy can just cover his car payment with what he makes off of the game, maybe he's going to keep pushing out stuff for it because it's a labor of love. So, you never know what you're going to find. But the other advantage to, and this is the one that kind of helps you, because I know a lot of you are like, well, I don't want to be his beta tester. Convince my players to play some new game and then find out it's busted because the rules suck. After all the time spent trying to learn it. The good news is about a lot of these indie games is because you're not talking about somebody who has years of game design experience, or a team, or a group of guys who are allowed to get to work 8 and 10 hours a day to put this game system together. What you have is inherently systems that are easy to learn. They tend to be very streamlined, very grab and go. And yeah, you may be filling in a lot of blanks, because it's stuff that one guy didn't think of in the 2 hours a day that he gets to work on his game that he's been working on for a year, and he kind of forgot the idea he started with 2 years ago. But it helps build the community. It helps spread and create more. It expands the market. It may keep that one guy, like, you may be what keeps a publisher publishing and keeps an option alive. And like I said, you never know. You may have just picked up the next Dungeons and Dragons, or the next Pathfinder, or the next Cyberpunk. That might be the next Mike Pondsmith, who is right now working in a factory, but he's putting together his game. And so, and they're really cheap. A lot of times you can get them for free, or $5, 99 cents for the PDF, couple dollars, $20 at most. Get the whole game system for $20. They're out there. Just look for them in the forum groups, peruse through Drive-Through RPG and look for something that looks like it might be a little bit more interesting. These kind of things are what are going to prevent another OGL crisis from being a crisis. It'll be great for us to just be able to say, when Wizards of the Coast does something stupid, we don't care. And you can do that by picking up one of these other games or one of these other systems. Do it. Grab your Call of Cthulhu, Cyberpunk Red, Traveler, a GURPS-based game, one of these indie games. Grab it, get a couple of friends together out of your group, throw it together, see what it is, Heck, if it's a bad indie game, maybe you just get a laugh and you got one of those great tabletop role-playing game stories because it's just how bad and busted it was. When you find out that the fighter is so overpowered that he's just like He-Man going through Skeletor's castle every time it's his initiative. So, that's what I'm going to talk about. That's my 5 things you ought to look into, my 5 games to check out that are not Dungeons & Dragons. Comment below what you think I should have added. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.